Pahlavi Texts, translated by E.W. West, Part 4. Contents of the Nasks, Clareton, Oxford University Press, 1892. Dinkard, Book 8, Chapter 19. 1. The fourth section, which is also called the Law of Hameh Ma Listan, Accuser's Code, contains particulars about accusation and about the false accusation by anyone regarding any other as to witchcraft, destroying a righteous man, theft, plunder, injuring the existence, minor injury, as regards several particular things, taking up a weapon, threatening with it, assault, tumult, incarcerating, false teaching, fettering, making dejected, neguno, giving no food, falsehood, speaking with wizard spells, or with threats of danger, abstracting the increase of laborers' wages, wishing to cut, buridano and squeeze, pashkadano, anything from anyone, and seizing, magidano, it, for fire and water, and whatever's on the same subject. 2. Also about the limitation of the accusation of sin therein, the retribution for it, and the dust, or ashes, or flour, for the eyes, and the rest of the bodies of human beings, it now speaks henceforth, for 30 successive heads. 3. About the sin of making people eat bodily refuse, and bringing it unlawfully to their persons or clothes, and of going to a menstruous woman or a wizard. 4. About a juvenile and well-behaved woman who comes out from a house of those of the good religion and is considered as well taught. 5. About falsehood and slander, small and great, and whatever is on the same subject. 6. About the care of a pregnant woman in lawful reclining, kapak, feasting, gashno, and work. 7. About a householder who does not teach his own household in order to teach the household of another, and whatever's on the same subject. 8. About a quiet and unquiet person with equal opinionativeness and the opinion which they have to form before beginning. 9. About the expediency or inexpediency of the opinion which is announced and the reason of both. 10. About the man who, for fear of a counter-assault, runs away. 11. Also about not renouncing sin, neglecting complaints, and whatever is on the same subject. 12. The difference of sin in priests from that in any one else as regards its renunciation. 13. About the expediency of retribution and the measure of the expediency. 14. About and to what extent is the authority of one's own priestly master for allowing the sin which any other person may commit as regards a disciple of that same, and that too of its discipline affecting the soul. 15. About the chastisement of a judge who is releasing sinners, and whatever's on the same subject. 16. About the justifiableness of a plaintiff in committing illegality. 17. About seizing the purity produced for foreigners, and whatever's on the same subject. 18. About one worthy of death, making supplication, lavako, cooperation with one worthy of death, and whatever's on the same subject. 19. About confession as regards anything, the object of confession, and whatever's on the same subject. 20. About exhibiting a liking for sin worthy of death. 21. About a blow with the weapon, which is incomplete or not complete, when adults or children shall inflict it, or when children with mutual assistance. 22. About a wounded person whose anguish was allayed by medicine, the arising of the anguish again from disease, when he died, and whatever is on the same subject. 23. About taking security, garobo, from the defendant after the decree of the judges. 24. About the legal proceedings as to an offense, when, owing to the incapability of the plaintiff, adjournment has always occurred, and a man would occasion an acceleration of the statement of law, the do vac, and of the procedure of the plaintiff. 25. About appointing a mediator, the dak gobo, and the object of meditation. 26. About an assault, zatam, which is altogether of furious, poor talk origin. 27. About a harmless, azad assault, and striking back fairly to test a weapon, and when it is not possible fairly, turning it into execution of duty, or giving of scars. Bisangdas, or punishment, a statement of the change, and whatever is on the same subject. 28. About the limit of the punishment of a child for the sin it may commit. 29. About seeking an interpretation, padokan, the limit of interpreting, and whatever's on the same subject. 30. As regards a signal of approving the words of anyone on passing away are these: about giving up anything, making a will about it, and renunciation of sin. 31. About committing an assault upon an unknown person at an indefinite time, and whatever's on the same subject. 32. About giving a weapon and telling someone to kill a foreigner who is taken for judicial investigation, and whatever is on the same subject. 33. About the great hinderers who were slain by a righteous man, who the great hinderers are, and unto whom it occurs, when one has to command it as assistance for one or many, or they shall commit the assault in advance or afterwards, and whatever is on the same subject. 34. About the weapon they shall seize, it is stated thus: I see a man and a sheep, I strike upon this and upon that, and it is gone, and whatever is upon the same subject. 35. About petitioning and the going of a frontier governor, Marzapan, to the feet of tyrants, Sastarano, to speak of regulations, and whatever is on the same subject. 36. Where and when one strikes a living person, he vexes him, and the living person he strikes vexes him when dead. But he who strikes a dead person is vexed alive, and the dead person he strikes vexes him when dead, and whatever is on the same subject. 37. As to wood and useless pith, deal, that which is for keeping is as far as a dimension that is mentioned, and one therefore passes it by not to burn, concerning also that wood which is only for the blast of a furnace, guri, ziga, as firewood. The burning and dimensions and blast of the furnace are stated, and whatever is on the same subject. 38. About the sin through which a man attains from atonement to the sacred twig ordeal, para smoke, vari, and from the sacred twig ordeal to the heat ordeal, garamok vari, which has maintained the worthiness of an assault that is an actual inexcusability, akari, to reasoning thought, and whatever is on the same subject. 39. About the excellence of physicians, their merit from doing good, and sin from not doing good, equality that exists as regards medicines, seeking a physician for animals also, and whatever is on the same subject. 40. About a horse which is new to the saddle, kofak, being made tailless, kapak, and not feeding, akavano, how it is done, the sin owing to doing it unlawfully and heedlessly, the wound and damage that arise from it, and whatever is on the same subject. 41. About several persons, when anything that is imperfect, or even not imperfect, as a weapon is convenient to them, and a wound occurs, and it is not evident which or who threw the weapon, it is not necessary to know its imperfection, or lack of imperfection, and whatever is on the same subject. 42. About the 3 modes for thrusting a weapon are these details. That is, so much of it, when one thrusts it on the ground, that is hard or soft or full of ruggedness. Akariganako, when one shall bear it up aloft, and the amount of the height, and when one impels it again with a sweep, or has to draw up its center at the time of a sweep, and whatever's on the same subject. 43. About an assault, and the most hurtful occasion, when, for the same reason, they would celebrate a religious rite, the retribution on the spot, and the sentence upon the 4th occasion. 44. About incarcerating Handeretto in a frightful and inaccessible of a dark place, and among noxious creatures, the quantity of noxious creatures, and whatever is on the same subject. 45. About grasping the tail of an ox or a horse on which another sits, to hold it back, and whatever is on the same subject. 45. 46. About threatening danger, wizard spells, and whatever is on the same subject. 47. About plants, as to the value of a lamb, or a sheep, or a beast of burden, store, or a human being, vivrok, either when the plaintiffs are 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or many, how one has to summon the defendant, and how much time there is. 48. About when the controversy, han bashni, as to theft, to go, and the confession as to plunder, of or the controversy is as to plunder, and the confession as to theft, and when the controversy is as to injuring the existence, and the confession as to minor injury, or the controversy is as to minor injury, and the confession as to injuring the existence, and when the controversy is to theft and plunder, and the confession as to injuring the existence and minor injury, or the controversy is as to injuring the existence and minor injury, and the confession as to theft and plunder. 49. And when the controversy is about so much, and the confession about so much of a different kind, when the controversy is about so much, and the confession about more of a different kind, when the controversy is about so much, and the confession about less of a different kind, when the controversy is about so much, and the confession as to more of the same kind, and whatever is on the same subject. 50. About the sin of unfriendliness of a master towards a disciple, and whatever is on the same subject. 51. About the taking a thief of anyone's goods, isigano, conducting him to the judges, and whatever is on the same subject. 52. This too, that when affliction has come upon a good man, the effort of every one for removing that affliction should continue just as though it happened to himself. 53. And when a good man is beaten through malice, the effort of everyone demanding compensation for him from the smiter should continue just as though it happened to himself. 54. And this too, that when there is no danger for one, the power of affording assistance is thus assistance of the innocent, and as to the property which may be carried away from him, and of which they shall make no restitution, after as much as a hussar, the carrier off, becomes guilty and liable to penalty. 55. About the distinction of indigenous and foreign, a'ir va un-a'ir, thieves, as to cold and the clothing given, and as to sickness and undergoing remedies. 56. About the hands of a foreigner being unfettered for no other reason but care of water and fire, to preserve them from blood, filth, and injury. Asipo. 57. About the sin of not restraining him who is the first assailant of two combatants as soon as his attack is seen. 58. about teaching the peace of renunciation of sin, the bond of worthiness, of him of great power, even when proffering union in renunciation with him of a little power, and whatever is on the same subject. 59. On the nature of responding about the keeping away from one's worthy of death, which arises through great judiciousness, the reason of keeping, how to keep, and whatever is on the same subject. 60. And on the nature of responding when they ask in malice about a righteous man, when one knows about his whereabouts, and one does not know. 61. About how one is to give a weapon to generals, Hengo, Padano, and august frontier governors. 62. About authorizedly shooting an arrow at one worthy of death, which is given, again, for killing him to anyone unto whom the person worthy of death is consigned and becomes supplicating, Lanako, and goes to the middle of the distance, and they shall afford him assistance, and enervate him for it, when, through the 3 words which he utters, they do not deliver him up again. 63. About one worthy of death who is preserved with great judiciousness, when evidence which they give before that about him is through another one worthy of death, and whatever is on the same subject. 64. About evidence as to witchcraft and destroying a righteous man, that is, in what proportion it is certain or doubtful. 65. About causing the execution of one worthy of death for entertaining fondness for witchcraft, and laughing at witchcraft, and whatever is on the same subject. Now, sin of various sorts, or crime of various sorts, shouldn't be a matter of joke, like it is on so many television shows and stuff nowadays. When something happens to one person, it affects the collective, and it's treated as that. And it's very important to bear witness to what you can bear witness to, rather than making assumptions like people do, particularly when things are of a political nature. And when we see a list, like in verse 1, and if I ever skip over, I will say something if we don't have that numbered verse in what we're reading. Well, murder at the top of the list, but I'm not sure that things break down into a worse to not as bad thing, because it seems to go back and forth, right? Because squeezing and seizing and cutting is probably worse than not giving food to someone who asks, even though you have it, right? So we have examples about that.